Yo, it's Jared and welcome to this video. This is round 6 coverage of the 2017 Doeberl Cup tournament, which was played over the Easter break. I was playing in the major section and I have the white pieces against my opponent Lillian Lu, whose rating is 1698, and I kicked off with e4, e6, d4, d5, and knight d2. As you know, I played this move in round 2 of this tournament against Veronique Eldridge-Smith, and I managed to get a really nice position, but I of course lost that game due to the complications. So I was hoping to do a little bit better in this game with this line. Now, as I mentioned in that game, the main moves are knight f6 and c5. But black can also play the move that my opponent played in this game, just d takes e4. This move is possible, of course, when the knight is on d2, or of course when the knight's on c3, which would lead to the same position after knight takes e4. Knight d7 was played, and I played knight f3. Knight gf6. Now I took pause in this moment because at the time I didn't really know the theory super well. I just had a hunch that knight f6, and bishop d3 was right, which turns out to be the case. This is one of the main lines. However, it is also possible to play the move bishop to d3 right now. And if black so chooses, black can capture on e4 and play knight f6, and then we actually have the same position but with 2 more moves played. But black can also choose to not take on e4 and play the move bishop to e7, and we get a line like this where it's about equal. Black's going to play bishop b7 and c5, and white is probably playing moves like bishop g5, rook e1, and queen d2, or maybe queen c2 or queen e2. I think it's actually queen c2 that white plays in this line. But I chose to capture on f6, which is also a good move. It's one of the main lines as mentioned. Knight f6 and bishop to d3. And now she played the move bishop to e7, which is okay. It's actually one of the main moves. The other main move is the move pawn to c5, which makes a lot of sense. And if I had the black pieces, this is probably the move that I would play here, because it basically forces white to take on c5, and now black can get the bishop out with 1 tempo rather than 2, and then castles, castles, some line like this, bishop g5, b6 intending bishop to b7, and black is just perfectly fine here. I'm not sure, I think I would rather be black. These 2 bishops look pretty good to me, and I think black is fine. This pin is a bit annoying, but I think just a later queen e7, h6. I mean, the pin is kind of annoying, but if you can't take advantage of it, then it's fine. So, and I don't really see how white will. So this position should be roughly equal. But as mentioned, bishop to e7 was played, castles, castles, and I played queen to e2. It was also possible to play c3, which is a line that I had known. I knew that usually white plays for c3 in this type of position, and the line goes something like this: b6, queen e2, and black can play this nice move queen to d5, and black is just perfectly fine here as well. He'll play, or in this case she will play c5 at some point, and probably just, you know, put the rooks in the middle of the board. That looks just good for black. Not like black's better, but black's fine. But I didn't play c3 because I had a different idea in mind in this position. I played queen to e2, which is fine. And now she played h6. Not a necessary move. Better was b6. Once again with the idea of bishop to b7. And some variation like this, rook d1. You can play h6 now if you want. And it's actually not, I'm not completely sure if bishop h4 is best or if bishop f4 is best. Both moves make sense, and both moves have certain ideas behind it. You can argue that the bishop on h4, might not be well placed. It might rather be on f4. Not sure. But h6 was played, and I played c4. This was my idea. I wanted to play c4. She played b6, b3, bishop b7, and bishop b2. I was happy to get this type of position. I felt that white should be slightly better, and checking with the engine just says it's equal. It just says 0, 0, 0. Nothing going on. So, but I was happy with this position. She played c5, which of course makes a lot of sense. And I played rook to d1, not taking on c5. She played queen c7, which is okay. And I played a move that I really liked. I played bishop to b1. This is a move that makes sense. It moves the bishop off of d3 so that the rook is opened up more. The bishop is out of the way of the rook. And in some cases, I might play the move queen d3 or queen c2 and have some ideas down towards her king side. She played the move rook a to d8, and I played h3, a move that I liked, just waiting and seeing what black's going to do. Now in this position, you can pause the video and try and think, if you were black, maybe I should change it over so you can see it from black's point of view. If you had the black pieces in this position, what would you play? What black should probably do is just take on d4 here. And the idea is after bishop d4, you've opened up c5. So in some cases you could play bishop c5, and in some other cases you could play knight d7 and knight to c5. Or knight e4, knight c5, but right now knight e4 is not possible. Also, it opens up the idea of playing the move queen to f4. Now this is very important, that you have to take on d4 first before playing queen to f4. And this move attacks the knight on f3. So in some cases, black might intend to just take on f3 and weaken white's pawns on the king side. So the line might continue something like bishop e3. And then there's a nice move for black just to go back to b8. And you're asking white, what do you plan to do as a move? What's your move? The engine gives the move bishop to d4, which offers black the chance to play back to f4. But there's possibly a nicer move in this position for black, which is queen a8, which is once again lining up on the knight on f3. And the engine assesses this as roughly equal. But I guess I would probably rather have black. Black's going to take on f3, maybe. And it's not quite clear what white's move is. You can't move the knight because also the pawn on g2 is hanging. So this is probably how black should have played the position. But she did not take on d4 first, she played queen to f4 right away. And this is the move that loses the game for her. And if you'd like to pause the video, try and work out what is the best move for white. So if you've paused your video, welcome back. The move that I played is d5. And black is in big trouble now. Black is losing. There are multiple problems now. The first thing is I've blocked the bishop from being able to take the knight on f3. Also, I'm attacking the pawn on e6 2 times, so that this pawn is just hanging. Note that you can't take on d5 because your bishop is hanging. And the biggest problem of all for black is the idea bishop to e5, trapping the black queen on f4. The best move seems to be to go back to c7, which doesn't make a lot of sense because it also just hangs the e6 pawn. The move that she played, knight to d7, also makes some sense. It tries to cover the e5 point. And this should also lose. I spent some time in this moment to try to work out what is the best way of playing. It turns out I didn't find the best way of playing, but the move that I played was okay. I played g3 to attack the queen. It turns out much better was knight e5. This is a move that I looked at, but it just didn't seem right. But this move is very powerful. This actually intends to play the move pawn to g3 next, and this queen has nowhere to go. Because if you play a move like queen g5, then you get hit with bishop c1. So after knight e5, the best line is to take on e5, bishop takes, queen h4, d6 simply wins the bishop. Because if you save the bishop with, say, bishop g5, bishop g3 wins black's queen. And if you play bishop to f6, bishop g3, queen g5, and h4 also wins black's queen. If you play queen to g5, there's a really nice line. f4, queen h4, f5, intending rook to f4. If e takes d5, rook f4, queen g5, and h4 once again wins black's queen. And if e takes on f5, rook f4, queen g5, h4, queen g6, bishop f5 wins black's queen. And if in this position you play queen to g3, rook f5, queen takes pawn, and rook h5 also wins black's queen. So knight to e5 was a very powerful move which would have won me the game maybe a bit quicker. But pawn to g3 is what I chose, and she played queen to d6, which looks crazy. It goes right into the line of my rook, but it turns out there's only one move in this position that wins for white. And I spent some time because I wanted to make sure that I found this move, and I did find this move. So if you'd like to pause the video, what is the only move that in this position that wins for white? To find this move, you have to think, what can black do? What are black's options? And do I need to try to open up the position right away, or can I make a waiting move? And I chose to make a waiting move with rook f to e1, the only winning move. This intends to capture on e6. She played bishop f6. It was better possibly to try e5, which offers up a pawn, but knight takes, bishop takes. And white has this nice move, bishop g7, opening up on the bishop on g7, and white is winning. White's up 2 pawns. But bishop f6 was played, and now the reason I played rook f to e1 before taking on e6 is now I can take on e6, of course, attacking the queen. And after queen takes e6, queen c2 attacks the queen and threatens checkmate. So in this position, my opponent could have resigned, but she chose to keep on playing to checkmate. Takes on e4, queen f5, takes on f6, rook d8. If you take back on d8, there's this nice move, rook e8 check, which wins the black queen. So she took on f3, takes. And in this position, I played rook f4. There was a much nicer move, a really nice move, queen d2, which I didn't see at all. It hangs this rook, but the rook can't be taken because this is a checkmate in 1. And this move intends to play queen to d8 check, so black is forced to play a move like g5, and then white can enter and get this type of action going much faster. But I played rook f4, which is fine. Queen c6, queen f5. Not really much to look at here, but it's just I'm up a whole rook. And now I opened up the king side with h4. And she kept on playing to checkmate, as mentioned, and mate. So I hope you enjoyed this game. Stay tuned for the final round in this tournament, round 7, and I look forward to your company then. See ya.